One of the things that are being discussed right now is the looting and the rioting that's been going on in Ferguson. And it's the same old story every time this comes up. When popular anger reaches a particular boiling point where it can no longer be contained by nice words and people advocating peaceful protest, it breaks out into something like this. When the injustice is just too great and people just can't stand there and do nothing to be peaceful, as whites, authority figures, and general media is telling them to, they have to do something. My argument is that this rioting and looting is correct. It is not only right to rebel, but also to loot and riot. Now when this happens, the liberal media went out trying to do its best to damage control of the situation, meaning while they certainly do sympathize with the suffering that African Americans are going through, with the now constant police killings, they will not allow it to be anything that can actually challenge them and the position that they hold. They turn around and decry the looters and say that they're not the real protesters. The real protesters are the people who were being peaceful, who weren't smashing things, weren't actually being aggressive. I would like to point out that those same people that weren't being aggressive, that were standing there being peaceful, were also being attacked, and in fact were the ones that were directly fired on first by the police. Second, some of them even went so far as to promote some kind of conspiracy theory, like it was actually whites that went down there and did that, who started the looting and the rioting, and are doing it just to make black people look bad. I mean, of course, that's absolutely ridiculous. But there's one thing common to all of these statements. It is decrying African Americans for rioting against what is an injustice that is being done to them through the use of violence. Even some of the leaders of the community were attempting to twist this in their own kind of way. Antonio French, an alderman, and the new Black Panther Party also went down there and advocated that people not be violent. Many of them tried to even stop looters, to stop them from committing violent acts, destructive acts. But what's very different about these people is that they were attempting to do this in order to gain political leadership. The Black Panthers wanted them to stop so that they could take control of the situation for their own political point scoring, not out of any real, genuine desire to see black people liberated. I'm not saying that they don't want black people liberated. I'm saying that in their case, what they were doing was trying to take control of what was a political act. Rioting and looting is a political act, particularly when it pertains to the constant murder of one section of the population. In both of these cases, what we see is a disingenuous act to try to stop looting for someone's own particular purpose, not for the purpose that looting and rioting was intended for, which was to bring freedom and to fight a power structure which is oppressing them. Now when leftists, or what are supposed to be radical leftists, go out and they decry this looting and they differentiate between people who are not looting and people who are looting, what they're doing is pushing some kind of narrative that some people are worthy of police protection and some people are not. It is not that black people are being repressed, but by doing this, they're pushing this idea that only a certain kind of black person is being oppressed. It's just those who won't pull up their pants. It's just those who commit crimes. So therefore, any police repression that's carried out is therefore justified. This is the kind of subtle thing that they're actually pushing by saying this. When you differentiate between different groups like this, you essentially are doing a divide and conquer strategy. You are saying some black people are worthy of not having this kind of injustice carried out against them, and some are not. When you're doing that, you're essentially giving police the green light to go ahead and commit these acts, because you're making it justifiable. It does not challenge the fact that this keeps happening to innocent people all the time. Trayvon Martin didn't deserve it. Michael Brown didn't deserve it. Eric Garner didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve to die. So when you put forward that idea afterward that some people deserve it and some people don't because of the riots, you're then going out and basically condoning the police to go out and commit these crimes as well. I find it entirely appropriate that protesters would go out and attack property. Is this not the very basis of the system that we have? Is this not the very basis of capitalism? Who owns property and who doesn't? Isn't this a large degree of the inequality that these people are angry at? The ownership of property is a very key aspect to it. So when they destroy property, they are essentially symbolically destroying that system that is pushing this kind of oppression on them. And a lot of people say, well, you're destroying your own community, you're destroying your own things. One protester, who I never got the name of, said, destroying what? We don't have anything. That's the problem. And what he says is very true. The system does have to come down. The system is based on the idea of property ownership. All these young African American men can die, and society doesn't care. It doesn't matter to them, because it's not them. But once the threat reaches property, something those in power do have, those, the white liberals who decry the crimes of the police, but decry the looters and the rioters even more, that's something they have. And they don't like it when that idea of property ownership, directly or indirectly, intentionally or unintentionally challenged, is challenged in this way. I would also like to state that I think it's pretty obvious that if these acts weren't violent, because a lot of the people come out and they say that, well, you shouldn't be violent, it's not right, it makes you look bad. Let me tell you this. Let me ask you, if there was no violence, would the world even be hearing about it right now? Would this really be a topic that other countries are talking about? I think it would go largely ignored if there hadn't been any violence at all. That's how it gets the attention. If you're not violent, they're going to ignore you. It doesn't matter, because it just goes away in a couple days. You do something like this, they're going to remember. There's a reason why the civil rights movement in the 1960s was so violent, and there was a reason why it had to be violent. Because you had to get people's attention. You had to make them pay attention to what was going on right under their noses that they either didn't know about, and a lot of people, white people, were completely ignorant as to what was happening to African Americans of the South. And to get them to realize how bad it is, and two, to wake them up so they pay attention and actually see that this is going on, and let them know how bad it really is. It would be entirely ignorant if we were to deny that violence brought change. It certainly has. And every supreme moment where things have gotten better, at least to some degree, violence has been used. A lot of people like to quote the idea of Gandhi being some kind of great spiritual leader of nonviolence who kicked the British out of India, which is absolutely laughable because that guy did absolutely nothing. He was a nice little media darling at the time. There's a reason why he was the one who got to make public speeches. He was the one who got on television, who got on the radio, because he was preaching nonviolence. But the people who actually worked, people who actually fought to end the colonialization of India, the 100,000 people that died in a single day at the hands of British oppression, they were the ones who actually got it. They're the ones you don't hear about. You don't hear the people who sacrificed their lives to have freedom from oppression. Them you don't hear about. You do hear about the liberals who stand there and advocate not doing anything at all. And there's a tremendous amount of criticisms that I could make of Gandhi outside of this very context, but that is clearly for another episode. Can anyone really deny that in this case it is absolutely necessary to rebel? If you're already being killed in the streets by the police, how can you not say it's right to rebel? You're literally being killed. You do have to violently stand up. It's literally right there in front of our eyes. So to tell African Americans they're not allowed to loot or be violent is essentially telling them that they're not allowed to defend themselves. And don't we see this in the very same context? When the US military rolls into a country, bombs the hell out of it, kills off a huge amount of its population, and then some people get pissed off at this and start throwing IEDs at them, or rocket attacks, or ambushes. What do they say? Oh, well, they shouldn't be doing that. It's just some insurgents. It's just some people loyal to the former regime or something like that. As though people can't be genuinely angry that a foreign military is occupying their country or something. It's the same thing. Our troops are there to help you. The police are there to help you. Don't attack them back when they literally just attacked you. It's the same thing, just done on a global scale as opposed to a local scale. When you say, don't be nonviolent, what you are really saying is the poor people, the weak, the exploited, the oppressed are not allowed to do anything back against their oppressors.